This show is part of the RetroZap.com podcast network.
Previously on Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels. So good.
Hello, Scoundrels. This is Courtney Martin from RetroZap.com. You're listening to Dennis and Taxus on Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels.
Well, it's also a time to be thankful. I know I am for family, friends, the show, our listeners.
Oh, yeah. That's a really good list.
Well, what are you thankful for?
The usual. A warm saber. Starships and planetary bombardments. Puppies. The cries of my enemies.
That sounds terrible.
I know. Puppies are a lot of work.
All right. Where'd you get inspired to do what you're doing? Just from, obviously.
Well, the internet has been big on Darth Jar Jar, and I thought it'd be funny to be him.
Do you do a good Jar Jar?
The Chew-E.
Chewbacca the Wookiee.
Hey, what's cooking, Chewie?
There's Tarkin. He's just moffing around. You know?
Yeah, well, he had plenty of things to do.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of stuff. So, all right.
Time to whisk up the gravy. Looks really good.
I just have to point out that there's hair getting everywhere.
He says he suffers for his art. Here, I'll turn on a fan. Maybe that'll help.
It's...
Yeah, watch out. You don't want to contaminate anything.
That should be the least of our worries.
I'm kind of hoping for a setback. I'm hoping for something.
I kind of am too.
Yeah, so now it's time for the taste test.
After you.
Oh, I couldn't possibly. Sithism follows a very strict dietary guideline. Right, Chewie? So here's a nice bite of mashed potatoes and gravy for you, Dennis. Open wide.
No, wait. Oh, it's very crunchy.
It sure is.
I find it more entertaining.
I'm not feeling very good. I might need a bucket.
Oh, Dennis.
It is December, Scoundrels. We are just over a week away from the release of Rogue One, and here is what is coming up on this week's show. Did you get Rogue One tickets? We discussed the pre-sale of tickets and Galactic Empire updates in this week's news. Also, did the holidays sneak up on you with all the anticipation for Rogue One? They're almost here, believe it or not. We have some great Star Wars gift ideas to help you out during the holiday rush. We have another episode of Rebels to discuss. This week, we look at The Inside Man. Finally, we'll get to some listener feedback and Silence Fools. That's your rundown for episode 17. Thanks for joining us. This is Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels.
This time of the year makes me very nostalgic.
Oh yeah? Like for past times, family, old friends long gone?
No. It reminds me of glorious times when I achieved a victory like none other. There I was, surrounded by enemies. All of the swine vying for the same treasure as I. The fighting was intense. The bloodshed merciless. The sheer mass of their bodies crushed the life out of each other. But I overcame them all. And soon, the prize was in my clutches. Oh, there was many a tear shed on that day from the victims left in my wake.
Oh, wow. That sounded like a terrible battle. What'd you get? Was it some sort of ancient weapon?
No, unfortunately not.
Oh, well then it must have been an ancient Sith holocron that could teach you how to harness power beyond measure.
No, but that'd be a pretty good one.
Alright, I give up. What could it possibly be?
It was a prize, the likes of which will never be seen again. A deeply discounted flat-screen television from Best Buy. I got a lot of customer points for it, too. I think they commemorated the day after my victory.
You mean Black Friday?
Yeah.
They didn't name that after your audio-visual victory.
Oh. I just assumed. Oh well. What's the worst experience you've had to pay for?
Being on the show with you.
Oh. Well, cash only, please. Get your credit cards ready, scoundrels. Welcome back to the podcast that has the last item of what you want in stock and is marking up the price to market conditions, thus taking advantage of your emotions. I'm your dark side co-host and proprietor, Darth Taxus, coming to you from the gift shop of my flagship, the Assessor Collector. And with me is the mystery shopper of the show, Dennis, the Phantom Menace, Keithley. Dennis?
Hey, Taxus, and hello, Scoundrels. Thanks for tuning in this week. So, Taxus, did you get any other deals besides your epic flat screen on Black Friday?
Yeah, I got some sort of like computer and not a death ray, but a pain in the butt ray.
I'm sorry I asked. All right, well, let's head on over to the news. All right, Scoundrels, we have a lot to cover in our hypothetical segment this week. So the news coverage is going to be very limited. I'll say this. If you want some Rogue One images and clips, they're out there. Check out sites like JediNews.com for that and all the other appearances by the cast, such as Felicity Jones' recent appearance on Jimmy Kimmel. And then there was just a live Twitter feed thing that happened earlier today that I'm sure you can find somewhere else. But we're getting close to the movie, and I am trying to stay away from some exposure, so we're going to go light on the that type of coverage right now. But with that, Taxus, why don't you take us away on the news?
Okay. Well, as everybody, including people who live under a rock, know by now, Rogue One tickets are on sale. Rogue One tickets went on sale November 28th. As expected, there are advanced screenings on December 15th ahead of the December 16th release. And I know there was some question about whether they were going to do that, but, you know, I feel, I guess this kind of goes back because I know some people were saying, well, I'm not sure if I'm going to want to necessarily be there for opening night. And to that I say, whatever, you know, I mean, I'm going to try to grab a ticket as early as possible, right?
Right, except for I'm actually not going to be there on opening night on the 15th. The first show that I got is the tickets for the show that you and I are seeing on the morning of the 16th.
And that's going to make it very special for you.
Well, yeah, you know, have you tried buying any tickets yet?
No, I've...
Okay, so you weren't part of that mad rush the night that those tickets went on sale. I'll briefly recount my experience, and I'm sure it's very similar to what everyone else went through. But yeah, we're in the Central Time Zone, so tickets went on sale at 11:01 as opposed to 1 minute after midnight over on the East Coast. And I loaded up my account on Alamo Drafthouse because I wanted to get tickets for a Friday evening screening with my wife and kids. And then I loaded up Fandango so that I get tickets to the screening that you and I are going to first thing Friday morning. And everything was great. I could load up the times on both the sites and see what everything was. And I had picked out the shows I wanted. So I was just waiting for that 1 minute after 11 to hit. And when it finally did, everything crashed. I guess I shouldn't have been surprised, but we just went through this last year with The Force Awakens. Did they learn nothing? I'm sure that there's listeners out there that work in IT and infrastructure and that are explaining to me that you can't prepare for these things. But anyway, it was frantic. And eventually, I had to abandon the idea of going to the Alamo Drafthouse for my Friday evening showing, and I switched over to Studio Movie Grill, which instantaneously gave me tickets for a show. And then Fandango, I got to work by pulling it up on my phone. Unfortunately, the first couple times I tried it, it was telling me all the shows on the 16th were in the past. And so I was like, what am I experiencing? A Rey Force vision from The Force Awakens? What's going on here? And but eventually it pulled up the first 9 o'clock showing. So that's what we're doing.
Awesome.
But, yeah. So I'm just hoping that by the time we get to episode 8, probably hoping against hope, that they get this figured out a little bit better. I know at some point on Fandango, they instituted a queue, which made things go a bit smoother for people. But it was frustrating there for that first 15, 20 minutes, to say the least.
Yeah, So last year in The Force Awakens, I have a local crew, and we kind of put together like a watching party, and we have Lord Girth Saber usually heads that up, and he was on the ball and ended up grabbing us all some 15th evening, not 3D or anything like that, seats. And so I think I've got the opportunity to go watch it there. I will not be spoiling anything, of course, but we're going to get some good post reaction with some good, strong Scoundrel fans. And then I'm really looking forward to the 3D version that we're going to see at 9 o'clock the next morning and everything. And
yeah,
I'm kind of looking forward to just rolling some tape after that, right after that, man. You know, let's get our reactions down, right?
Exactly. All right. Well, we got one other thing that we want to talk about here in the news, and that has to do with one of our previous guests. So why don't you take that away?
Sure. Galactic Empire. Past guest Galactic Empire announced the international release of their heavy metal Star Wars cover album for February 3rd. The track list includes the main theme that they had previously released, as well as the Imperial March that they had previously released and graciously allowed us to use as background music for Saber Clash. Duel of the Fates, the Force theme. This is a good one. This is a really good pick. The Asteroid Field. Battle of the Heroes, the Cantina Band that they had released earlier with part of their promotion for fundraising. Ben's Death and the TIE Fighter Attack. I think that's really also an interesting pick. Across the Stars. That's a good one. I think that's kind of underrated, and so I'm really excited to hear what that's going to sound like. The Forest Battle, and then the Throne Room and title. So, what do you think, Dennis? I think those are some pretty good picks to cover.
Yeah, this is a good representative collection from the saga, and I can't wait to hear it. I've already heard a few of the tracks that they've previously released, and then some of the stuff that they released through Kickstarter. So this is gonna be excellent. I can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, they've been really working on the costume redesigns just to make sure they don't step on any toes or anything, and making sure that the costumes are also capable of allowing them the freedom of movement to play their instruments in a live setting. I think it's, again, it's a very, I don't want to say aggressive, it's a very avant-garde approach to doing something like this. Sure, we've had people record music in the past covering Star Wars tunes, but they actually want to take it live on the road. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think people currently in the United Kingdom might be enjoying it. I have to double check that, but soon to come to us here stateside. And even if they're in Houston, I'm just gonna say I'm gonna make the trek down there. I'm just gonna have to do it because I really want to check this out.
All right.
So congratulations, guys.
Exactly. Well, that'll do it for this week's news. Again, short segment this week, but there's plenty of stuff out there, Rogue One, that you can find on Jedi News, and probably more clips and new trailers, and go out there and enjoy all of them. All right. Well, everyone's excited for Rogue One. You're excited, right, Taxus?
Nothing past tense about it, Dennis. I'm currently very excited about it all.
Indeed. Well, in addition to the hype for a new Star Wars movie, we are also in the midst of the holidays. I know for a lot of Star Wars fans, the holidays almost took second place to The Force Awakens last year. And to be honest, they've kind of snuck up on me this year. So with that in mind, we thought we would help you out, Scoundrels, with some Star Wars gift ideas for this holiday season. We think many of these will work regardless of whether you celebrate Christmas, Hanukkah, or any other winter holiday. Mm-hmm. So with that in mind, I think we've each got a short list of some ideas. So we'll start with you first. Taxus, what do you got?
Yeah, Dennis. So for the first thing that I've selected, it's a really cool little fun item. I know that the proprietor puts a lot of love and attention into it. Her name is Allison Barrios, and she is with she has a little company called Cosplay for Jedi, and you can find her on Twitter at Cosplay for Jedi. She has an Etsy shop too. www.etsy.com/shop/cosplay for Jedi. And what she makes Leku, little head Leku. You can wear it on your head and such. And, she's got some for Twi'leks and she's got some for Togruta. The Togruta, I think, are a little more expensive. She also has some really cool head wraps, reminiscent of the Night Sisters and such. Not only are these useful for cosplay, because I've seen some pictures where people full on used them, but they're also fun for what my daughters and I call casplay, where if you just want to wear something that's fan related out and about or at a convention, you can do this and people will be like, oh yeah, that looks really cool. I remember that she actually gave some to Vanessa Marshall, and Vanessa Marshall loves them to death. They look great. She spends a lot of time and attention on them, and you can't go wrong, starting at around $20 or so.
Yeah, those are a lot of fun. I've seen people wearing those. You see pictures of them all the time on Twitter. And again, it would be good for anyone who wants to cosplay, or like you said, it would be ideal if you kind of want to cosplay. Just get something light for a convention. And, you don't have to go full out with those. So I like that suggestion.
You get cosplay, right? Cosplay because it's casual.
Yes, I got it.
Okay, all right.
All right. So for my first item, I was trying to... When I came up with my list, I was trying to come up with things for different types of people. And the first segment that I came up with is the collector. And so we had a previous guest, Dengar Dan, on the show, and he's, of course, into Funko Pop. And we talked quite a bit about the various Star Wars Funkos that are out there. And their Funko has got a subscription service, which we've made reference to in the past on this show. And that is the Smuggler's Bounty. And that's a bi-monthly subscription box. And so... I think they've got one coming out next. The Rogue One one just came out, which had an exclusive Jyn Erso and a Death Trooper, and it was a really great box. But each box typically has at least one Funko. Sometimes they have two, and then there's usually a T-shirt and some other collection items. There's always a pin and a patch. But it's a fun thing to get for someone who's into collecting, and I like it because it's allowed me to build a small Funko collection without having to go track things down. It's something that'd be great for people who like Star Wars and like collecting. The boxes, if you can do them individually, and it's $25 plus shipping and handling for each box, or you can do an annual subscription. And if you do that, then at the end of the year they send you a subscriber's bonus gift, which was delayed this year, but I like these quite a bit. And of course, you can find them at smugglersbounty.com.
Okay. And do you also get some paper towels in the box?
Paper towels in the box. Whatever for?
Smuggler's Bounty?
Bounty, right. Gotcha. No, unfortunately not.
All right, moving on. My next selection is a Texas company, and this is a cell phone case company called Tantrum Cases. You can find them at www.tantrumcases.com. They make a real hardcore quality cell phone case. I imagine you could probably run a tank over them, they wouldn't break. But from their website, they offer mobile protection for a dangerous universe, made from a single piece of aircraft grade aluminum to protect your phone from the dire effects of gravity. Tantrum cases are known for their ruggedness, and the Star Wars case is no different. With an integrated silicone shock absorbing liner and industrial grade hardware, this case is tough enough for your galactic adventures. Whether you align with the dark side or the light side, we have a case that fits your needs. And I gotta say that the first time I saw these were at Star Wars Celebration Anaheim. I was so impressed with it. And the very, very kind proprietors wanted to give me one for a sample, but unfortunately I had an old cell phone model and, well, it just wouldn't fit. However, they do have them for iPhone 6, and I imagine they're probably going to have them for iPhone 7. They're currently on their website with different great designs like the Mandalorian symbol, the Rebel Alliance symbol, the Imperial symbol, BB-8, and the Millennium Falcon. They're on sale right now, $50 off. Some people might think this is a little pricey, but I guarantee you these things are so hardcore. If you're like me, if you're so hard on your phone, this is the perfect gift for somebody at about $150.
Which one of those is your favorite?
I think the Mandalorian one is my favorite. It's I don't know, it just stands out. Looks really, really good. And believe it or not, the Rebel Alliance is probably my second one.
Okay. Is that the Mandalorian symbol, or is it a picture of a Mandalorian?
It's a Mandalorian logo. Yeah, the symbol. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's really neat.
All right. Well, for my next suggestion, this is for students or people who work in an office, primarily people who work in an office for the first version of this, but it's not new. I saw the Cross has put out a limited line of pens featuring Star Wars characters. There's R2-D2, BB-8, C-3PO, Darth Vader, and a Stormtrooper. I saw these originally at Rancho Obi-Wan last year when I went to the gala. They were auctioning off some of the earlier versions of those, and they went for quite a nice sum of money. They are a bit on the pricey side. These are $450 a piece, and you can find them on cross.com. However, they do have a cheaper alternative that would probably be more fitting for a student that go for $45, and these are more of the click type pens. But the deluxe version comes in either a rollerball or a fountain pen. They're really nice. I don't know what else much to say about them, but I do know people that like to collect pens, and this would be an ideal gift for them.
Yeah, it's interesting. Did you get to try one out?
No, I haven't had a chance to try one out, but they were sitting out on a display. They were being auctioned off, and my wife is a big pen collector, and we went over there and she drooled over them a little bit.
Cool.
They're really nice pens. You wouldn't be disappointed with these.
There's something we said about a high quality pen. I know in both of our lines of work, having a very nice one that's got, I think the term's draw, the way the ink flows out of it,
right.
And everything. That's, if you're into that, if you need something that's going to be awesome, I think something like this would be a boon to you. So useful, absolutely, and fun. All right, well, up next, I've got another Texas company. Okay, this is so lightsabers are fun, Dennis. We can all agree on that, right? We've seen in Star Wars how much fun people have with them, right?
Yeah. What's a good afternoon if someone doesn't lose a limb?
Well, that's, who's concerned about all that stuff? But this company I might recommend is Ultra Sabers, and you can find them at ultrasabers.com. They make a very good lightsaber made out of aircraft aluminum. If, let's say, you've got a Padawan that's interested in getting a saber, you don't really have to shell out a huge amount of bucks to find a decent one with this company. You can find one, I think the Initiate version starts at about $55, and what you're going to get with that is you're going to get the LED, you're going to get the saber shaft, you're going to get that you can remove, and of course the nice saber hilt, and you can turn on and off. Of course they have other options. They've got sound cards that you can add to it. They actually have programmable LEDs, so you can dial in your own light combination that you want. But those, of course, are a little bit more cosly. But if you've got somebody that just wants to have some fun with a good-looking lightsaber, go do some cosplay, go do cosplay, or even, and I can guarantee you can go to town with these things on each other. So, if you got a couple of boys that are just really have a lot of energy, you want to let them work it out, this is the gift for you. So, Ultra Sabers, I highly recommend it.
Yeah, one of the things I liked about them, and we saw them at the Dallas Comic-Con, was that a lot of people were using these to make their own customized lightsaber.
Yeah.
When they didn't necessarily have the skills to kind of put something together themselves, or to go to the real high-end sabers elsewhere. And these look great. They really fit the bill, especially for any type of cosplaying that you want to do. So definitely a good recommendation there. Okay, so we're going to take a break from our suggestions to bring in fellow Retro Zapper Michael O'Connor. Michael, welcome to Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels.
Hey guys, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Michael, we asked you to join us because we were offering some Star Wars gift suggestions, and you just have something people might be interested in. What can you tell us about George Shot First?
Yeah, it's an apparel company I started with a couple of friends of mine, and we were kind of just sitting around and we were thinking of, the Star Wars fandom, and we were thinking about George Lucas in particular, and the fact that whenever we go online, whenever we see anything about the maker, it tends to be negative. Like there's a lot of real kind of animosity for the guy, and we didn't feel that way, and we felt like a lot of other fans that we knew didn't feel that way. And yet when you go and look at apparel or you look at different merchandise, anything that includes George Lucas is automatically something negative. And so we wanted to change that. And we wanted to have fun with it. And we wanted to also celebrate, George Lucas as being the creator of Star Wars, and the guy who, in our minds anyway, brought us a lot of great memories and a lot of fantastic movies. So we started coming up with designs, and we said, well, let's make some cool merchandise and some cool t-shirts for fans to wear and to show their support of the maker.
Yeah, because like it or not, I mean, I know everybody's got their differences about some creative differences from some of the movies, but we wouldn't have this brilliance if it wasn't for him,
Yeah.
And so,
exactly.
I applaud that a lot.
And it was just our feeling that, we feel like, whenever you see an article, a mainstream news article about Star Wars or about George Lucas, there seems to be, it's almost like it's an absolutely necessary thing in the structure of the article. They have to take one line or one sentence, either the beginning of the piece or the end of the piece or somewhere in the middle of the piece. They got to call out, some dig on Lucas, or insinuate that Star Wars fans don't like him. And in our own experience, as far as, we're on RetroZap, we write the power, I'm on RetroZap, and I write the Power of the Prequels piece every month. And, I get a lot of email from Star Wars fans and a lot of messages and everything. And there's a lot of fans out there of George Lucas, and we just kind of feel like, we kind of got misrepresented. So we started coming up with ideas, and we just thought, in our little bubble where we're all Star Wars fans and we're online, it's easy to, for all of us to be like, yeah, George Lucas is a pretty cool dude. We're grateful to him for creating Star Wars. But once you get outside of that bubble, you talk with people just on the street or, at your local bar or whatever, and, their feeling or their thought is that, Star Wars fans hate George Lucas. So we just said, well, no, we don't hate George Lucas. Why would we hate George? There wouldn't be Star Wars. There wouldn't be Indiana Jones, also without George Lucas. Even if you don't love everything he did, if you love any of the Star Wars movies, you've got him to thank for it.
Oh, yeah.
So, so we started coming up with some fun ideas and some t-shirt designs, and we really wanted to take it out of the internet, take it outside the internet. We could do a bunch of memes that just, you and I and a couple of other fans would see, or we could put it out on the streets and show everybody, our fandom. And that's what we wanted to do.
So one of the images I love on your all site is the George Lucas kickback in the cantina with the camera in his hand, camera blaster in his hand, and Greedo slumped over the table.
Okay, that's my favorite too.
Yeah,
I mean,
where else did you all draw your inspiration from?
Yeah, so that was the big idea. When we came up with the idea for how do we want to celebrate George Lucas, the big thing that we thought about was the Han Shot First movement, which came out obviously after the special editions, and a lot of people saying, hey, this is totally messed up. George can't go back and change the scene. And the way we looked at it, we said, we like the scene the way it was originally. We thought that the first version of the special edition with that new scene was not great. We agreed in principle with some of the fans, but we didn't agree with the way that they took it to such a level where there was this animosity and this hatred and just this all of these just really negative feelings about George, and we feel like ever since, that scene keeps getting better in reissues, to the point where now it's like, okay, they pretty much shoot at the same time. Why are we all still arguing about this? Why is this still a contentious issue in fandom? This is kind of a silly thing to get worked up over. So the way that we kind of looked at it, well, okay, if these fans are going to take the side of Han shot first, and this is going to be their rallying cry for division among Star Wars fans, then what our side is going to be is George shot first, because he's the one holding the camera. So he technically shot first, even before Han Solo ever, before Harrison Ford ever put on the vest and shot that scene. It was George Lucas who actually came up with these ideas. So we got to tip our hat to him, and we do it in kind of a tongue-in-cheek way.
Yeah, and that sure speaks personally to me, because photographic equipment is my preferred tool and medium for eliminating my adversaries. But other than that, I really like the simple black with the yellow. It's very reminiscent of something, isn't it, Dennis? With George shot first, and I also enjoyed like the wide range of campaign-esque. It's like you're not eliminating any part of the market with your product. You're offering it to all people, one way or the other, how they want to pay homage to maybe some of their personal feelings with it. Yeah. We had some fun with it. We released that around July 4th. Yeah. And so we kind of we picked the symbols and the styles that we thought were the most interesting. And then just what we could kind of riff off of for a satire. Yeah. And we do have a couple of other lines coming out. We just released our kind of our fall collection, which we've got a couple of cool hats, and we've got some hoodies. So, for colder weather. Yeah. And we've got a couple of other lines that are coming out pretty soon. I would really wanted to get them out before the holidays, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. But we do have... our next line is kind of prequel themed. We do have one shirt up there that is kind of a preview of that, which is our Power to the Prequel shirt. It's a hand, it's a fist in the air. It's very similar to the design that I have for my column on RetroZap, Power to the Prequels. So it's a fist in the air, like the protest fist in the air, but it's holding a hilt. It's holding a lightsaber hilt. Oh, cool. So it's going to be a whole line of protest-themed prequel shirts that are all going to be kind of around that theme of, prequel fans like myself and like so many other folks that I've met who just feel like, hey, guys, like, these are awesome movies. Like, pay attention to them. Like, don't talk smack about them. They're great films. So we've got that coming out, and then we've got another line after that, which I can't talk about too much, but we've already, we're reaching out to some different artists, and we're very excited, and we're having a lot of fun with the different ideas that we're coming out with. So.
Cool. All right. Well, the website is obviously georgeshotfirst.com, but where else can you be reached if listeners have questions?
Yeah, so you can find us on Twitter at GeorgeShotFirst, and in that case, it's it's George Shot and then the number 1 ST, or contact at George Shot First, and in that case, it's all spelled out. It's George Shot First, all in letters. And then I'm also on RetroZap. You can find my articles on there, and I'm at OconnoBlog if you want to reach out to me personally. That's my personal account, OconnoBlog. And I also just want to say to all the listeners, if you go check out GeorgeShotFirst.com, use code Sabers, all in caps, SABERS, and you get 15% off your first order. Try it out. If you see a design that you really like, and even if you don't, just come over and say hi to us on Twitter or on Facebook. We'd love to just, see how many fans of George Lucas we can get together and kind of build this into a little bit of a movement.
All right.
Well, that's great. Special deal didn't even know about. Well, again, Michael, thanks for joining us and telling us what George Shot First.
Hey, it was my pleasure. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, man.
All right. Well, so getting back to our list, the next idea I had, I was trying to come up with something that's really a fun gift for kids of all ages. And this one is perfect for me as well. I am huge into Lego, especially Star Wars Lego. And they just released a bunch of new sets for Rogue One. There's the U-Wing, there's a Krennic Shuttle, the Imperial Assault Hover Tank, and the TIE Striker. And then they have some of those other sets where you kind of build the characters themselves. I'm not sure about those, but these other sets range in prices from $30 to $90, so they're a bit more flexible with your budget. The one that I've really focused in on is the U-Wing. It's about a 659 piece set, which will take you a couple hours to build. These things can be a little bit fragile, as all Lego sets are, but they've done a really great job in recent years building in some movement to these models. This one has the wings that fold back as the model will in the movie. So it comes with I think it's 5 minifigures: the U-Wing pilot, Jen, Cassian, and a Rebel Trooper and Bistan. So that would be a great set if you've got a Lego fan in your family.
That is a great set. That kind of reminds me of how much was the Millennium Falcon a few years ago?
Oh, geez, that thing was well over $100.
Okay, and that had like 5 figures to it too, or something like that.
Yeah, they've done a couple different versions of the Falcon, and they've had different, the Force Awakens set, I'm pretty sure, had Rey and Chewbacca, maybe Finn and Han, and some Unkar, Plutt, and maybe his thugs. And then they've done that Lego set, themed it for The Empire Strikes Back, and it had Han and Chewie and Leia and C-3PO on it. So and they may have done a New Hope version as well, but it's that was typically the same thing. Good set. They still have that one out there as well. That's a fun one to get.
I'm kind of interested in the TIE Striker, to be honest with you. I think that looks
that's
like
a good looking one. The thing, my only complaint really about these sets is they aren't really doing them to scale anymore. The TIE Striker, from everything I've seen, it's supposed to be about the size of a TIE fighter, and the U-Wing looks to be supposed to be something about the size of the Falcon. But the sets are about the same size. At least the models appear to be about the same size when they're constructed. So, but you know what? They're still fun to put together. That's some of the most fun about getting one of these Lego sets is the actual construction of it.
Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. Well, next up on my list was somebody that was on our show in the last episode, Chibi Essence. And you can find them on Twitter at Chibi Essence. That's CHIBIESSENCE. Or on the interwebs at chibiessence.com. And not only do they have Star Wars bobbleheads that are uniquely made, but they have other fun fan bobbleheads as well from Marvel and DC Universe. They've got their own with their own storyline, with their own creations, I suppose you might say. But for about $10 a pop, these things make some really fun stocking stuffers. So I recommend you go check them out. It's another Taxus company. So, I guess I'm going on a theme here or something. But they're out of Houston. And I'm pretty sure they spend a lot of time and energy on their product. It's a wonderful product. The boxes look great. They have little stories on them. And like I said in our last episode, they make Darth Maul look really cute.
And that's what we need more of, is cute Darth Maul.
Sure thing.
All right. Well, that's a good suggestion. I think you're right. Those would make great stocking stuffers, and not terribly expensive either. So for my next suggestion, I'm moving over to the kitchen because people do like to cook. You've probably seen this one. It's been around for a number of years, but there's a number of different Star Wars cookbooks, and the one I'm thinking of is Wookiee Cookies and Other Galactic Recipes. We've used this one quite a bit in our household. They have a fun and pretty good chili recipe. I think it's called Crazy Cantina Chili, and they have the Wookiee Cookies and other things there. The recipes aren't particularly difficult. They're not necessarily novel to the Star Wars universe either, but it is a fun Star Wars themed cookbook. There's lots of pictures. They did like action figures for most of the illustrations. Cool. So it would be fun if you've got a Star Wars fan that likes to cook, and it's not terribly expensive. I've been able to find this book, listed online for $14 to $18. It's on Amazon.com. I'm sure you can find it at Barnes & Noble and perhaps your local booksellers as well.
And the recipes aren't too difficult to where your kids can't dive in and help out, right?
That's a good point. Yes. Our kids have helped out with quite a few of these that we've tried, and it is fun. It is a cookbook that your kids could get interested in, especially with, like I said, the action figure illustrations.
Mm-hmm. And if you're going to do something like a May the 4th be with you party or something along those lines, a little cookbook like this has some great ideas for some party fun. So yeah, that's a good suggestion.
Thanks.
No problem. Good job, eh? So moving on next, I've got my my last fun. This one is really cool, and this is a company called Legendary Costume Works, and you can find them at www.legendarycostumeworks.com. And these are the people that created the Taxus belt of impregnability for me. So I really like their product. It's high quality, good craftsmanship. This thing is really cool, though, that I found on their website. They're offering for a pre-order special for the low price. And you might say to yourself, Taxus, when you tell me this price, I'm going to say, you're saying that's low? Well, just wait till I tell you what you get. For $247, you get, as expected to be seen in Rogue One, a leather belt and holster and replica blaster of Jyn Erso. And the thing looks awesome. We're talking like hand-rubbed leather. I mean, it looks film quality. That's all I can say. $247. It's a total cosplay must. So if you want to dive into doing a Jyn Erso get up, really recommend you check out Legendary Costume Works. Also, they got some great saber belts and Han Solo belts and holsters and stuff, so you can find them all there too.
Yeah, you've had a real cosplay or castplay element going to your suggestions here. I like that.
Yeah, thanks. It's fun. I mean, I recommend it.
Yeah, well, you have quite an impressive... Well, I'm sorry. I guess for you it's not cosplay. But your uniform has been quite impressive, and I know you've used many of these vendors that you've been discussing here. All right. Well, yeah, my last suggestion is a bit more of a high-end toy, and I think this is going to be something that's a bit in demand this year. They debuted these, I think they debuted them at Star Wars Celebration Europe, and these are the Star Wars Battle Quad drones.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're smaller drones. That they have a TIE fighter, an X-wing, and a Scout speeder bike. They appear to be, for their size, very well advanced. I read up on these. You can find out more about them on brookstone.com and bedbathandbeyond.com. The two biggest places I saw them on sale. They're designed for, they have a beginner mode, and then they're also got a mode that you can switch them over to experts. I don't know exactly what that entails, but these look to be a lot of fun. They've got videos on both websites that demonstrate these things being used, so you can kind of get an idea. I don't believe you want to get these for kids necessarily, but for an older fan that likes Star Wars toys, this would be a high-end type of gift. And by that I mean they're averaging about $234 each online. I think these are going to be fairly limited, so to the extent that you want one, or you think you might be wanting to get one for a gift for someone, you're going to want to probably pre-order that. And again, you can do so at brookstone.com and Bed Bath & Beyond. I don't know if you had a chance to see these Taxus, but they also have LED laser cannons, so if you get them in a room with low lighting, you can actually see these things shooting at each other.
Yeah, that's really
cool. To do so.
Yeah, I imagine like the expert versus beginner mode must be like the spread of the light that's shooting from them, because can't you use them to fight against each other and register hits and stuff?
I don't know about the registering hits or stuff. I didn't notice that so much. I mean, that's possible, but it looks like it would be fun to play with. The videos were having people fly them around in little squadrons, and I've only ever tried to play with one drone, and it was not as easy as it looked. But they went to great lengths. So these are made by Propel to explain how they have tutorial modes and beginner modes. So I think this would be a good one to maybe learn on if you were so inclined.
That's cool.
Well, I think that does it for our top 10 suggestions. Did you have anything you wanted to throw out there as an honorable mention? I
got just a couple of quick honorable mentions. The first one is a really fun, and I found it on Amazon. It's a silicone glove that looks like Darth Vader's glove. and it's used for cooking. And if you're like me, you love to grill, and having to get real close and personal to the grill grates, it kind of burns my real sensitive Taxus hand. And so this thing would ablate the heat and hopefully protect my poor skin from getting burned. Plus, it has a really cool Imperial logo on the bottom. And only if Anakin had a full bodysuit of this might things have turned out different, So, and then my next up, yet another, if I'm remembering correctly, Texas company, anovos.com. They've got a really cool Imperial officer hat that I've kind of had my eyes on for a while. Now, they say it's like your standard hat, but I think they've got like a high quality uniform versus a standard uniform. Not quite sure if it's the material used or what. But it's a really cool, typical, you know what I'm talking about, the kind of flat bill cap that fits over their, head with a little disc in the middle of it.
Right.
At about $50, comes in olive drab or black. So whether you're going full on 501st cosplay, which I think this meets the standards of, or if you just want to get it and just kind of wear it around, or go to a convention and have it on just for fun, for cosplay. I think this is a really good find. I think it's fun. Anovos. So you can go w.anovos, anovos.com.
Yeah, Anovos makes a lot of great gear for people that like to do cosplay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've only got one honorable mention, and this came out of a conversation that you and I were having the other day. But we like to talk about the Star Wars comics a lot around here, and it can be expensive if you're trying to buy all these on a weekly basis as they're released. So here's an alternative that you might consider for the Star Wars fan that likes to read comics, is a subscription to Marvel Unlimited. I can't remember the price off the top of my head, but essentially, if you read a couple comics every month off of it, it's paying for itself.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a full year subscription to. I think you can also get monthly subscriptions, but to Marvel's digital library. So you could use this on your tablet or your mobile phone. The only caveat to that is that there's nothing more recent than issues that were published 6 months ago. So you couldn't read, the latest issue of Star Wars, number 25. That won't be available until sometime in May. But again, there's, at this point, dozens of Star Wars comics that are going to be available on there. And you could get the classic line of Marvel comics if you wanted.
Yeah.
And then, there's plenty of other properties. You like Spider-Man, you like Iron Man, Doctor Strange. He's had his movie recently. They would be all available to you as well. Again, just with that 6-month waiting period for the newest stuff.
Can I catch up on my Aquarian comics?
Your Aquarian comics.
Yeah, the Aquarian. That's my favorite superhero.
Is he Marvel? I'm not familiar with this one.
Yeah, he's very Marvel. Something to do with the Cosmic Cube and stuff. He's like my favorite.
Okay, well then I suppose you could.
Great. But you know what? That is a really great suggestion. I mean, even if you're not caught up, even if the comics aren't being released until 6 months afterwards, it gives you the opportunity to catch up on everything going on, and then you can hunt down the paper, the trade paperbacks.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing. If you the trade paperbacks come out months after these things are done anyway, so you're waiting on, you have a bit of delay there as well. But it is a nice way to have them all there. And if you don't want to get the individual issues or the trade paperbacks, this saves quite a bit of room. You don't have to bag and board and put them in boxes and or however it is that you store it.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to save yourself quite a bit of time and space.
And somebody like me that's been actually on top of picking up all the latest comics, the fact that they roll out the old Marvel comics, I'm kind of interested in,
Yeah.
That's a good gift.
I use this quite a bit as a supplement for when I'm working on reviews for things. So I highly recommend it. And now we have another guest joining us. Our listeners may recall the good, the bad, and the ugly logo designed by the Sky Geek. Now we have the man himself joining us. He is also known as James Volpe. James, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Hey, no problem.
Absolutely. So we've been doing this gift suggestions for all of our listeners for various Star Wars things, and you did such a wonderful logo for us, and we know you had some Star Wars designs on your site, so we thought we'd have you on and tell us all a little bit about your designs and where to find them.
So I have it set up at tpublic.com. If you just search under the user/Volpe design, so it's tpublic.com/user/Volpe design. You'll find that there. That's my main site that I go under. I do freelance work. So I have all my like my resume and all the examples of stuff that I've done on there. I also have a Spreadshirt shop as well too. If you look under, that's Geeks Shirts that with GEEX.spreadshirt.com, and I have the designs on there as well. So depending on, there's sales off and on those sites. That's what I usually post. So,
I can see. Okay, I really love your designs because
thank you.
it takes, like for example, okay, this is a when I read this, I fell out of my chair. But your double tap shirt.
Oh yeah, okay, that was like one of the first ones that I ever did.
It's like the logo of Double Dare, but it's referencing, of course, proper shot placement and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
and I thought that was great. I mean, it's like you make connections with things that, I don't know. I don't want to say normal people wouldn't make, because I'm not saying that. I'm just saying you make connections to things that, like, I feel like that makes sense. Well, right. But I mean, it's great. I really love what you got going on here, and I can't recommend enough for the Scoundrels to go check that out. Especially the line of shirts you got going on with the finger pointing. Where'd you come up with that?
Growing up, I just saw the "I'm with stupid" shirts that were always pointing. I don't remember when that was. I think probably in the 80s. And then the best one my brother had when he was in high school, it said "I'm with stupid" and it pointed up. I always thought that was pretty funny.
Oh, that's great.
So I think I started with "He shot first," which is Greedo's finger pointing, and then I went from there. Actually, I was going to tell you guys, I just sold one of the Admiral Ozzel shirts. I just got the notification. Okay. So I originally made the Darth Vader pointing, and it said "The Force is strong" with this one. And then my son's like, "Oh no, you should change it." So he gets all the royalties for that.
So that's the one I was just looking at. Yeah, that's the one I was just about to say. I love he's as clumsy as he is stupid.
That was his idea to change it to that. So.
Oh, it's great. And go ahead, Des.
And then I was going to say I am particularly fond of the Into the Garbage Chute Flyboy than the Top Gun.
Yeah, so I was originally had submitted a lot of these to the different shirt of the day sites, and I kept getting the same response that your shirts don't quite fit with our themes. So I finally got somebody recommended TeePublic to me, because you can publish whatever you want, and then the people can decide if they want to buy them or not. It's not a group of people saying, this is a good design. If anybody out there is also interested in doing t-shirts, I would highly recommend this site.
Well, I just have to say personally, I might have to load up this Christmas, because I love So Uncivilized. It's a picture of a blaster. This is brilliant. I might actually have to get this for a gift for the office Christmas party, but because we make hipster jokes all the time. I'm not a hipster, I'm a Jedi, and it's got
I just sold one of those. It's been a while. I put that out right when The Force Awakens came out, actually.
Oh, that thing's awesome. and then for my girls, I'm kind of interested in the whole Leia with her foot up on the helmet, holding a blaster and winking, saying I'm on a diplomatic mission. I mean, that's so great.
Yeah, thanks.
No problem, man.
Is there someplace that you go to for your Star Wars inspiration here? I got the idea of the pointing ones with the "I'm a stupid." That's especially with the severed limbs in some of these cases. That was genius. But where did you get some of these other ideas?
A lot of them, I had talked about this before with Joe from RetroZap. I have ripped the DVDs of Star Wars into MP3s, and then I listen to them at work, like over and over again. And then when something goes, hey, yeah, that'll be a good idea, it hits my brain, then I just come up. That's where a lot of these came from, just listening to the movies over and over again. So.
Well, and I just got to go on and say, Qui-Gon says relax. I think my wife...
That's my favorite.
Yeah, my wife used to have one of those Frankie says relax t-shirts.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that has to be a certain age group for that one to understand that one, but...
well, you know what's funny is my kids are totally into Friends.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Isn't it says Frankie say relax or something?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And apparently, like, teenagers are discovering Friends, sort of like we were discovering, the shows of the 50s and 60s and stuff back with Nick at Night or something like the Monkees and such.
Yeah, my daughter is 16, and she always says it's like ancient from the 70s. I'm like, I was born in the 70s.
Yeah.
Sometimes at the time. So we know you have a show of your own. You want to tell our listeners about that?
That's the Ska Geek podcast. I started that in 2011, and basically what I wanted to do was create. It's almost like a mixtape format. So I just get different songs from bands. I started out with just going from my CD collection, but now I've gotten to the point where newer, younger bands are sending me their material to play on the show.
Awesome.
So, and I've gotten bands from all over the world, which is pretty cool. Like from the Philippines and Korea, South America. I don't even know how many different countries it is now, but yeah. So basically just to help get people to exposure to newer bands that they probably never heard before. So that was what I was trying to do. But then anytime it mixes with Star Wars or anything geeky, nerdy, I like to do that. Like last year I had the Christmas special, which kind of coincides with the Star Wars Christmas special. So I did like Oscar Isaac was in a ska band. I don't know if you guys saw that.
No way.
So it was like in the late 90s. He was big into the punk and ska scene before he went into Hollywood and all that stuff. So yeah, I found that and I jumped on that right away.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. This has been great. And again, thanks for the logo. We've really enjoyed using it on our social media. If any of our listeners wanted to reach out to you, they had any questions, especially maybe about your designs on your site, where's the best place for them to reach you?
I'm at Ska Geek on Twitter, and you can email me at theskageek@gmail.com. And also, if you go on Facebook, I'm under The Ska Geek under Facebook. I pretty much, if you just Google The Ska Geek, most of my stuff comes up. So if you want to check it out.
Okay.
All right. Well, perfect. Thanks so much for joining us.
Yep. Thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, well, that will do it for our gift giving guide for 2016. We hope you will find this useful for any last-minute purchases you need to make, Scoundrels. If you have other suggestions, we'd love to hear them. Please send those to SCubedPod@rectroZap.com, and we'll try to sneak them into a show before Christmas.
The Ghost is a very nice ship. I could probably
forget it.
I'm kidding, of course, but I do need a ship.
So this past weekend, we had another new episode of Rebels. Taxus, sound the spoiler alarm because this is a no holds barred discussion. And here's our summary for An Inside Man. The Rebels returned to Lothal as the request of Ryder, who we met last season and knew as her parents. Fulcrum advised that the Empire is building a new weapon in an Imperial factory there, and the Rebels plan to attack it. When Ezra and Kanan infiltrate the Imperial factory, they are surprised by Thrawn's arrival to investigate the malfunctioning speeders that have emerged as a result of sabotage. Ezra's friend Samar tragically dies demonstrating one of the speeders at Thrawn's request. Then Kanan and Ezra manage to escape from the factory once the new Fulcrum reveals himself after Chopper retrieves the plans to the Empire's new weapon. Reunited with the rest of the crew of the Ghosts, they learn that the Empire is building a new fighter that comes with shields and poses a serious threat to the rebellion. Okay, so that's our summary. Lot happened in this episode.
Yeah.
This is up front, I'm going to steal your thunder here because I normally give you the first word, but this was a hell of an episode, pardon the language. One of the best ones I think we've had in weeks. Lots of development here. What did you think, Taxus?
Yeah, I thought this was the thing we were finally waiting for. We're finally seeing some major Thrawny action where he's, that what he does is he comes in and says, I'm going to cut down on these defects by making everybody on the line test their own product, Yeah,
that was cold.
Yeah.
It was really cold.
Yeah.
And, this is the most Thrawn we've got so far, isn't it? He was in this start to finish. So, the first, as you said, he was making the workers there test their own products, because we had seen earlier in the episode when Ezra and Kanan get to Lothal that they're meeting up with Ryder to find out what's going on. And Ryder was, again, the individual, I guess he was a governor or an official there on Lothal. He knew Ezra's parents and was in prison with them, and he didn't want to get involved, but then they convinced him last season that he needed to get back involved with what's going on in the fall. And so he lets them know that they've got inside men on the factory, and that the speeders, once they get to 190, whatever their unit of speed was, they burn up and crash.
Right.
And it turns out another voice from the past is the inside man. That would be Sumar, which was one of the farmers that we saw in season 1. Was the inside man, and so he gets them in there, and he tragically is the one that dies. So then we got Thrawn coming in, and he's making everyone, like you said, test their own devices. Ezra and Kanan managed to slip out because they're still trying to figure out what's going on there. So let's dive into the art. That's what Thrawn was known for in Legends, was analyzing his enemies through their art.
Yeah.
And then plotting their demise. And I know off the mics, you and I had been talking earlier a bit about some of that art that we found. So, what did you think? What was your, what did you notice there with the art?
Well, there was an image of the Mandalorian Crusader mural from, I think it's Clone Wars. What I say? It was season 2, episode 12, I believe. And, I think, and the Crusaders were part of the Knights of the Old Republic lore. They were, fighting against the Republic, thousands and thousands of years ago. And I think, I'm not sure whether they actually said, okay, yeah, this establishes that the Crusaders really existed, but I know in the Clone Wars, not only was that mural, but also on the Wookiee Hunt episode, one of the Trandoshans had one of those helmets, almost as a prize. So, I'm thinking all the art that we saw was him trying to get in the heads of all the rebels.
Agreed. Yeah, some of the other pieces that were there, that was a good, nice catch on the Mandalore, or the Crusader painting. At least it brings in, further demonstrates that there's these Crusaders cultures, which is obviously goes to Sabine, since she's, as we've learned, the season tied up in Mandalore culture.
Well, and that helmet actually looks like, from the old, now non-canon Dark Horse, the Mandalore, helmet, like the helmet of gives you ruling authority. That's what I was wondering if that was the mural was actually part of that.
Right. Well, then we also saw Hera's family portrait, which we saw earlier this season, hanging up in the background.
Yeah.
There was some, according to the Rebels recon file on StarWars.com, there was also some ancient Lothal glyphs. I'm not sure what they were doing there, or what that says about the Rebels. We also saw Kanan's mask that he had from the end of season 2 was there as well. So he's clearly studying them. But I guess the biggest thing that they discuss in this episode is the Phoenix logo that Sabine paints everywhere.
Right.
And Thrawn asks Callus what he knows about this, and Callus immediately identifies it. So Thrawn says, he studied this and he's noticed everywhere, and noticed that it's everywhere, and that it is a territorial marking, and that Lothal has meaning for these rebels, and they've claimed it. It means something to them. They're always going to come back to it.
Right.
What do you think about that? Do you think it's an important marker, or as or what does that really say to you?
You know, I was thinking, I know that he was talking about Lothal, but I guess I was kind of thinking it in the bigger sense of the Rebel Alliance forming. And I'm wondering if this image is popping up like more than Lothal. But, you know, I think that's what he's saying. Like, you know, they have the whole family element. We talked about that. The whole ties, family and home. And Lothal's kind of where everybody started off with this group. And so I'm thinking that's a pretty accurate estimate, but did you?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, it is Phoenix Squad now, and I don't know if they became Phoenix Squad, that cell with Rebellion after Hera joined them, or this group of rebels joined them or not. I was under the impression that it was always Phoenix Squadron. I guess I'd point out one other thing. I agree. You know, Sabine paints that all over the place, including on the inside of the Ghost, which definitely is home. But she also paints it in an awful lot of things that she blows up.
Right.
And in fact, you know, they early on in Rebels in that first season when they invade the Star Destroyer to rescue Ezra, she paints it on the floor with, I guess, an explosive paint.
Yeah, that was cool.
And then in that short, she invaded the little shipyard where all those ties were, and she painted it on a bunch of ties that they blew up. So anyway,
one more piece. Oh yeah, well, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but just one more piece of art I want to point out. Did you see the Ahsoka wolf?
Oh yeah, you did point that out. Yeah, that was sitting there in the background.
And I think, I'm not sure, I know, was that from Celebration with Filoni talking about how she was going to find some sort of wolves or something like that?
That was part of that presentation. It was something that was never produced. It was an idea he had, since Filoni is a big fan of wolves.
I thought that wolf head almost looked like it was a star map. Sometime.
Interesting.
Like it maybe the constellations formed a wolf head, but if you go back and look at it, because it's like a bunch of dots and they're kind of connected, almost like hyperspace paths or something. It's kind of, I don't know. I don't know much about it, but it just made me think I've got a little bit more interest in going back and looking at it.
Right. Agreed. Well, you know, the other things I did like was that Thrawn really did live up to his Legends namesake. With the studying the art and the deduction. I mean, the logo was the best use of that trait for Thrawn, or not the logo, the Phoenix symbol, I should say. And then, you know, he did spend a fair amount of this episode deducing what it was that the rebels, or Ezra and Kanan really, were going to do. And, you know, he expected them to go out the front. When they didn't. The only rebel escaping, so therefore they must have had someone that tipped them off. That might have been a leap of logic. What did you think? I guess to me it was, you know, if they're competent spies, they may have figured out an alternate route all their own, and they may have had plans to this base. I mean, it's they could, it's not like all the workers were kept there in the base. We saw Sumar outside.
Right.
You know, someone else could have given them an idea of an alternate way out. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I was trying to follow the logic on that too. Maybe that's because he's much smarter than we are. But, I'm not really sure why he thought that. Maybe, you know, I really don't know. I mean, that's a good point. I remember listening to it and the first time and I kind of glossed over it, but the second time I thought, you know, I really don't follow what his chain of thoughts are on that.
I mean, I'm willing to overlook it and let it be a moment where Thrawn got to use his superior intellect to figure something out. But, you know, I do believe Ryder said that he was going to head to the East Gate before Thrawn ever deduced that. So it's not like you need an inside person to figure that one out.
But when Callus, though, when he comes across Ezra and Kanan, they're dressed in armor, and Callus like immediately kind of figures out who they are.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, okay, so let's get to that, because that's huge. So Thrawn has figured out that there's obviously spies in the factory. And because two people, he didn't have to use any great powers of deduction there. That lieutenant that was running around said, two of the people have not reported in. And so Thrawn says, well, obviously they're spies. And, then we'll need to look for workers. And then Thrawn says, no, they won't be workers still. They've adopted other disguises, whether it's maintenance or troopers. Obviously they were troopers. Excuse me. So, and then he says out loud that, they must be headed to Section A2, where these plans are being kept.
Yeah.
And so double down on the security there, and I've ordered that anyone who comes in there doesn't present their credentials is to be shot and killed, or killed, regardless how.
Right.
And so, anyways, Kallus heads down to that direction, and Ezra and Kanan and Chopper manage to get the plans, and then they're trying to talk their way out, and it's not going well. And an elevator opens, and Kallus is there on the elevator, and he says, you two, get in here and help me secure the perimeter.
Right.
And so they're standing there, and then Kallus says, stand right where you are, rebels. So he obviously knows who they are.
Yeah.
And the reason he headed there is because the big reveal. And you want to go ahead and tell him what that is?
Yeah. Agent Kallus is Fulcrum, or this one, the one that's been communicating to them this season.
Not really surprising anybody. I think most of the online community had figured out that Kallus was, in fact, the new Fulcrum. There certainly was enough hints dropped from season 2 to now that this was going to be the case.
But I did like their reaction. I mean,
yeah, they're not willing to believe it. And let's talk about that for a second. I am willing to actually buy that Kallus might be playing a game, and he might break all of our hearts later. I am leaning towards the fact that he actually is trying to defect. His relationship with Zeb in last season, when they're stranded on that ice planet, I guess that was like near Geonosis or something. Mm-hmm. What he did for Sabine earlier, unless he's just been very well coached by Thrawn to play the long game, earn their trust, and then betray them later. And if they did, then I'm going to give Filoni and the crew major props, because I'm really buying that he's defecting right now. But as you just mentioned, Kanan and Ezra and Hera and Zeb and Sabine all during this episode cast doubt on what he's really up to, and that they're going to have to keep an eye on him.
Well, and this wouldn't be the first time that Filoni used something like this in one of his stories. With The Last Airbender, Prince Zuko was hot to trot to find the Avatar, right? And there was, I think it was season 2, where he and his uncle are kind of disgraced and outcast, and his uncles taught him the true meaning of what it means to live in peace and all this stuff. And you think that Zuko's going to make the right decision at the end of season 2, spoiler alert, but Zuko's sister convinces him otherwise, and he kind of reverts back to where he started. Now later he has another redemption episode and kind of finally sees the light and becomes a good guy. Again, sorry, spoiler alert, it's been out for a while. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if something like this happened here too. I really hope it doesn't, because I like Kallus now.
I do too. I know there were a lot of people that was hoping that previously unidentified officer in Rogue One was going to turn out to be Kallus. Yeah. And it's been confirmed that it's not, unless they're pulling the wool over eyes and deliberately misnaming him, as a code name or something. But identified him as someone else, but whose name escapes me at the moment. But I'm glad we got this moment. At least I look forward to seeing what's going to happen. Let's skip ahead to the end of the episode for a second, and then we'll go back to a few of the other details. Okay. But at the end of the episode, when the rebels have escaped, Thrawn has Governor Price and by the way, she's in this episode, and Agent Kallus in his office, and he's read Kallus's report and is talking to him about what it was he concluded, and he's certain that there's a spy. And Price says this is an outrage, and we'll round everyone up and interrogate them and figure this out. And Kallus is anxious to help, or eager to help. And Thrawn says, let's not be so hasty. We can discover who the spy is and then turn them into a tool and basically use them as an asset.
Right.
So what do you think? Does Thrawn know that it's Kallus and is making this part of his plan? It seemed to me that he was almost toying with Kallus a little bit, but he would have effectively tipped off Kallus just the same way he tipped off Commander Sato a couple episodes ago with the Iron Squadron episode.
I think that he's beginning by a process of elimination, figuring out who the mole is. he's got more disdain for Governor Price in this episode than he did before.
That's Callus or Thrawn?
Thrawn, yeah. Okay. He's kind of, I can't remember the line, but I just remember he seemed a little less prone to put up with her, you know? And okay, so he's got rid of Constantine. Or Constantine wasn't in this episode. I think he's determined that the rebels escape because Constantine's just an idiot, usually, and not helping.
Right. Not sure how that man ever got his commission, but
right. I think that, I think he's beginning to suspect, but he doesn't have anything substantial.
Mm-hmm. Well, it seems that Thrawn always knows what's going on or has a long plan, so it could go either way, but something worth considering. So let's retreat a bit back. Callus has finally revealed himself to be Fulcrum, and he gives the passphrase, which is something along the lines of by the light of Lothal's wounds.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
So that's how he convinced them that he was who he said he was, and then he's helping them unlock their comms, or that's ostensibly what he's going to do.
Right.
And so they back into that communication room. He's like, "Oh, the rebels are here," and so then Kanan and Ezra walk in and stun all the guards. But
they stunned the guards instead of just laying them out. By the way,
yeah, they're Jedi.
Well, earlier Ezra face shot, face hit somebody.
Necessity of the moment, I think.
I guess, yeah.
But so. I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. Oh, so they're in their room, and it turns out Chopper was able to unlock their comms.
Yeah.
So Callus advises them how to get out, which is that alternative exit that we were talking about earlier through the hangar for the AT-ATs and the walkers.
Callus seems somewhat amazed and impressed by Chopper too.
Right. So, they finally are getting ready to leave, and they say that, Callus says, "Well, I got to make this look convincing." And then Ezra force throws them through the view screen.
Yeah.
And then Kanan says, "Ezra," goes, "What? I had to make it look convincing." He goes, "I wanted to do that." So, I love that moment. They have reasons to be upset with Callus. He may be a rebel, he may be Fulcrum, but he did make life hell for them back in season 1.
And it's a little non-Jedi-ish what Ezra did, throwing them through the glass like that.
Yeah, but I guess it would be convincing if you're not anyone other than Thrawn.
I suppose, but it just kind of felt like, because they actually kind of admit that there's a little payback, revenge motivation behind it,
Well, and I guess the other part of that is that if Callus really is on their side, that act is uncomfortable, and as much as that's going to hurt, shouldn't be enough to say, well, forget the rebellion, then they're going to throw me through a window. So they're off. They get to their ATDP walker, and they're going out that east entrance that riders head towards, and there's 2 AT-ATs standing there. And
this part was cool.
This part was really cool because they kept using the legs of one AT-AT as cover to keep the other one from hitting it. And this maneuver I really liked. So finally they maneuver the ATDP under one of the AT-ATs, and the drivers say, "Well, enough of this, let's crush them."
Yeah.
And that's what they start to do with the AT-AT. They start bringing the thing down on it.
Yeah, and then of course, they think, in reaction, they cut through the top of their ATDP and then cut into the other AT-AT. So, I thought that was kind of neat because it just wasn't stupid drivers, It
reminded me so much of Clone Wars, of something that seemed like such a Clone Wars a thing to do.
Yeah.
And it was one of my 2 favorite images from this episode. Them standing there in the cockpit of the AT-AT in their Stormtrooper and Scout Trooper gear with their lightsabers. Ignited. And then earlier in the episode, when they've met up with Ryder and they're kind of booking it out of town on the speeder, and the speeder's kind of on its side and they're hanging off of the engines and deflecting blaster fire. some really great imagery. The action in this episode was top notch.
Yeah.
I don't think there's been any better all season.
Okay, and that's what I was going to say, because it's just the little things that are being filled into the background that made this feel so great. Like, for example, Ryder and Mrs. Suma, I suppose that is.
Sumar.
She just launched off a missile, at an AT-AT. She didn't know any better, right?
Yeah.
And takes out the knee joint. Well, that's the one that Ezra and Kanan are on. And as that thing's falling, they have the wherewithal just to lay out a volley into the head of the other AT-AT, and which made, of course, Ryder and Mrs. Sumar turn and look at each other like, what? Those little details were great throughout this episode. I think that's the thing people really love, seeing that, like you said, that kind of action element where it's just, it doesn't feel forced. It's kind of seamless.
This was Star Wars. This was good old-fashioned Star Wars swashbuckling adventure. This was fantastic. Yeah. Okay, so we've only got a couple minutes left, and there's one major thing to hit, and then we can give our grades and other things. But so they finally rendezvous with Hera and the rest of the crew of the Ghost, and Chopper and Sabine get to work on decrypting the plans that they've stolen from this factory on Lothal. And what do they discover but a new starfighter? Did you recognize it?
Oh yeah, it's my favorite because it just dominates. It's the TIE Defender, and first encountered in Star Wars TIE Fighter. And I
all
love
the way back in 1994.
Yeah,
this is an oldie but a goodie.
I'm looking at the icon right now on my screen. So the wings look, it's like this tri-wing kind of design. And it was fully outfitted with lasers, ion cannons, missiles, and shields. Hyperdrive. Yeah, it's basically like a souped-up X-wing for TIE fighters.
Right, super maneuverable, really, and it's a real threat. And so, just looking at the plans for it, Hera concludes that if they get these things operational, it's going to be a real problem for the rebellion. Which makes me wonder: is this maybe a reason to see X-wings later in the series?
Oh, like they're going to develop the like the X-wing coming in
somewhere. Maybe do they find out about X-wings and say this is something we're going to need to combat what the Empire's got, and then they manage to take out the Defenders before they ever become a serious threat, and they're left with X-wings. So I don't know.
Plus the Defenders are really expensive, and it's kind of contrary to what the Empire's concept of just overwhelm your enemy with sheer size and numbers. Yeah. Right.
The Empire doesn't believe in life support for their TIE fighters.
Right.
So, all right. Well, I think we've hit most everything. So, lay it on us. What do you? How do you rate this episode?
I'm gonna give it a 98. Loved it. I loved the chopperisms. I loved when they're in the elevator, for example. And they're like, saying we shouldn't trust you, and you hear Chopper saying trust him.
Yeah, that was great.
I thought that was because that reminded me of the whole C-3PO thing. What are you doing? Trust him. Yeah, I thought this was wonderful. I thought the dialogue was fun. It just wasn't a couple of spots just kind of like, I know why they're doing it, but when Ezra and Kanan are standing in line and are in formation, and Ezra's like, ooh, Thrawn, why I oughta, okay, don't do that, because that's just gonna make you stand out,
Right.
But I thought it was kind of dark with the whole blowing up the motor thing. Kind of glad, hey, kind of kids can handle that. You know what I mean? I think it's time to bring that element back in a little bit more, Yeah, like I said with Ezra, doing the face shot, on the one stormtrooper was like, whoa, but that hurt. But yeah, I loved it. I thought it was a great episode.
Yeah, I'm going to give it a 99. This is my favorite episode of the season so far. It was, like I said earlier, it was the Star Wars swashbuckling adventure that I look for, that I enjoy the most. It advanced the story. It had Thrawn. It had the Thrawn that everyone was looking for this season. And there's going to be stuff that comes from the rest of this episode, or from the rest of the season out of this episode. So 99. I couldn't have been happier with this one.
Let's have more of them.
Absolutely. And I think we're going to get a really good one next week.
Oh, yeah. Can't wait.
Right. More dark side, more Maul. So, what do you think of this episode, Scoundrels? We'd love to hear from you about Rebels with your theories and analysis of this episode. What do you think's next for Callus? What does Thrawn have in store for the Rebels? Let us know by emailing us at SCubedPod@retrozap.com.
Hey guys, it's that special time of the year, and you're probably wondering what to get your lady for the perfect Sithness gift. Well, I know just what to give her to satisfy any of her dark desires. The perfect dark side robe. These robes are just the thing to wear when you have private liaisons to plot naughty plans for the both of you and the galaxy. Not only are they stylish, but they come in multiple colors. Black, midnight, ebony, black or dark, opposite of white, raven, obsidian, pitch black, and onyx, to name a few. She'll be surprised, and you'll love to feel the hate flow from her. Get her the perfect thing to keep her burning with anger on that cold Sithness night and see her power grow. I know mine has.
All right, Scoundrels, it's time for...
Silence, fools!
Okay, well, we received the following email from our friend DarkSideMX, and he says, I'm laying here reading Timothy Zahn's Vision of the Future. Luke and R2 are climbing a steep ravine and having difficulties. Where are R2's rockets? Why would they not make sure he has these replaced if some foolish person removed them? It bothers me. Well, that's a good question. I don't know that they ever came up with a real reason in Legends, and I know they don't have one, at least they've not stated one so far in the current canon. I don't know if you remember hearing this, Taxus, but this got asked, and I think it may have been Star Wars Insider or something like that, where basically the folks at Star Wars Fan Relations basically said something to the effect that, he's an older droid, they stopped working, and the warranty expired. So I don't know. I don't really have a better explanation for it than that. What do you think?
Well, my first question is, when was this book written in relation to the prequels?
I believe it came out maybe around the same time.
Okay. So that would be the one thing I would think of is maybe at this point in time, the whole side thrusters, which, let's face it, they were worked in as a simple way to explain how R2 can get around, right? I mean, in my opinion, because like, how's R2 going to get there? He can fly. Yeah, that's the ticket, and
I looked this up while you were talking, and it actually came out before the prequels. The hard drive version of this book came out in September 1998. So I think right there, that's part of your answer right there, is that no one knew that George Lucas was going to put rockets onto R2-D2 in Attack of the Clones, which came out in 2002. Mm-hmm. So that does create a problem. And this type of thing they ran into it all the time with the expanded universe, is that there was a number of books that were written before the prequels came out that contradicted what George did, with the biggest one being the clones, the way they were grown, the way they were used, who they were. And this is another example of that.
And that's why I really appreciate the attention to continuity that Lucasfilm is paying right now.
Inevitably we're going to see some cracks, and
of course,
small ones. But it's just that it's such a big universe. We've already got 7 movies. We're about to get our 8th. We had 5.5 seasons of Clone Wars, and we're on season 3 of Rebels, and now we've got about 100 Star Wars comic books, and another dozen novels now in the canon, and it's inevitable that we're going to see some contradiction there. And I know the story group is doing their best to keep these things straight, but it's, even if you got a dozen, 20, 30 people, it's going to be hard for everyone to catch everything, and not every person there put their eyes on it. So
people are people.
Again, this is a pre-story group issue, but it did cause a lot of consternation for people once we saw R2-D2 flying around. But and here's the thing, is that excuse about the rockets no longer working and someone forgot to renew the warranty. I'm not even sure that holds water based on what we've seen in Rebels. Chopper is an even beat up older droid than R2-D2 was.
Yeah.
Yet he, switches to rocket mode all the time and then flies around for great distances, and he doesn't ever seem to have a problem with his booster.
If I was going to retcon it, I would make it maybe something like there was a modification that R2 had that removed those. Maybe different legs.
Yeah, I suppose. Or that's a good one. I like that. They had to
do that to Chopper. Yeah, they had Chopper. Remember, he had to replace his legs.
Or simply that they did wear out, and it's the rebellion's not the Empire. And replacing a droid's boosters is not as dire as making sure all the rebels have blasters.
Should we use the fuel to allow this droid to fly around, or so we can shoot guns at the enemy? Yeah.
All those in favor of shooting enemies say aye.
Aye.
Right. All right. Well, I think that does it for our Silence Fool segment. And, Scoundrels.
I might have one little thing I got to add in here, Dennis.
Oh?
Yeah. Yeah, and so Dennis, I had an associate send me an email recently, and here's what she says. Hey, guys. I've always been a hardcore Star Trek fan, but I love Star Wars movies. I have questions about Rogue One, but I feel intimidated about asking because I'm not as engaged as I am with Star Trek. What can I do to learn a little bit about Rogue One before it's out? Thanks, Stephanie B. Well, Dennis, what would you suggest?
Well, she's always welcome to submit emails and questions to us. I'm always happy to answer them. If she didn't want to do that, I would recommend the new novel Catalyst. There's still time to get that in. Tarkin also has plenty of information that would lead into Rogue One. Numerous episodes of Rebels and the Clone Wars. There's quite a bit. Other podcasts are talking about Rogue One, and even hopping on Twitter, you can find out a bunch of information. What do you think?
Well, I think you might be in a minority there willing to share information, Dennis, because as I considered Stephanie's question, I began gathering my word-hoarding dark energy for Saber Clash.
Well, it happened again. Taxus has got a hot space opinion, and he's going to inflict it on the rest of us. With that, take it away, Taxus.
Thank you, Dennis. The pursuit of knowledge is an undertaking celebrated throughout the galaxy. For example, history, mathematics, art, physics, literature, theology, music, and law are all admirable practices for individuals to endure the many long hours of training, school, debates, and tests in order to achieve a pronouncement that you have become an expert in that field. But with this mantle comes the terrible responsibility of instruction and guidance to the next generation who will follow in your footsteps. But all of these disciplines pale in comparison to the one truest and highest subject of pursuit for the few who are called. That of being a Star Wars subject matter expert. We fastidiously study every detail, every possibility, every outcome, every individual and artifact that inhabits our most favored of realms. Viewers still take the opportunity to see a reshaped world as the playground of an undiscovered country, awaiting our exploration through its still developing landscape. The quest is one that grants the journeyers the highest accolades, outshining any medals and laurels awarded of any heroic feat of tales of old. But unlike the impetus to share the carefully cultivated garden of Star Wars knowledge with others, I advocate that we must jealously guard it. We must lock upon it the proverbial chastity belt of haughtiness and defend against those who seek to despoil our flowering collection of wisdom, like so much a hutball team out clubbing. Of my weapons to defeat the deluge of insipid questions cast my way in a clumsy barrage of wobbly arrows fired from inept archers are the powers of ridicule and borderline bullying. My shield is the echo chamber of agreement from a collective groupthink. My armor is self-righteousness. For those who dare to ask me questions that make it evident that they look for the quick and easy route without shouldering the burden of learning all that they can about Star Wars, they must understand that the most ignorant question is any possible question. For why else should we be held in such high esteem as keepers of the faith if we were tasked with helping others to understand and to learn? We are the last line. We are the gatekeepers. We cannot afford our order to be sullied by explaining to people such trivial things as timelines, familial relationships, and such. I just don't understand why the general public won't do what I did and prepare as much as possible when faced with the advent of greatness such as Rogue One. I have read all of Catalyst, and I can answer any questions you have in an effort to promote my most favored brand and build fandom unity. But I won't. You face derision and condemnation for even deigning to wonder who Jim's mother is, or how are Galen and Krennic friends, or the slight differences in a planet's tectonic plate movement that produces Ranite instead of Kyberite. I know these questions burn deep into your Star Wars-less brains. So in summary, welcome to Star Wars fandom. You have questions, and we don't have answers. Back to you, Dennis.
Well, you can do all that, or you can just look it up on Wikipedia like Taxus did.
Yes.
And is this because I wouldn't answer your question about Plagueis the other day?
I didn't even need to ask that question because I know everything.
Uh-huh. Well, I think that'll do it for this week's Silence Fools. Well, that was another full show. I think we did a pretty good job on the gift guide and shared our ticket buying experiences.
Yeah, if anybody wants my address to send all those gifts to, I'd be glad to tweet it out later.
I'm sure you would. Do they UPS deliver to the accessory collector?
Well, they just kind of leave it at a drop point, and then I send troops down to collect everything. Yeah.
I'm surprised the concept of gifting works with you. Anyway.
It's more the concept of getting.
Gotcha. If you would like to support the show, the best thing you can do is leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We like to reviews on the show, and we'd love to read one of yours. Also, if you get a chance, share our posts on Twitter and Facebook. Let us know you're listening. Thanks to everyone that has shared or showed with others. Our downloads always reflect active sharing. If you want to find us on social media, we are at SCubedPod on Twitter, and on Facebook, it's at facebook.com/SCubedPod. Taxus is at Darth Taxus on Twitter, and I am at DJKVER2. In addition to social media, you can reach us by email at SCubedPod@retrozap.com. And if you have a good Star Wars story, Fred Catalyst rather, and have thoughts, or you have gift-giving ideas, let us know about them. The best emails, which is pretty much everything, end up in Silence Fools. Again, that email address is SCubedPod@retrozap.com.
As always, we are honored to be part of the retrozap.com podcast network. Please check out retrozap.com for other great shows, including Brews and Blasters, The ArgCast, The Deucecast Movie Show, Dunecast, Skywalking Through Neverland, Talking Apes TV, Techno Retro Dads, The Trade Federation, We Know Nothing, The Animanicast, Beltway Banthas, and The Sandcrawler.
Yeah, if you get the chance, check out the Trade Federation. Bill has some great suggestions on budget collecting. Highly recommend that one.
Yeah.
Special thanks this week to Michael O'Connor and James Pope for joining us to discuss some gift-giving ideas. Special thanks to Aaron Lay for our show logos, and Mindy Reynolds for her vocal talent. And here's our legal disclaimer. Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels is not endorsed, affiliated with, or sponsored by Lucasfilm Limited and Disney. This show is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. All characters, music, and sounds are the intellectual property of the respective copyright holders. All else is the intellectual property of Starships, Sabers, and Scoundrels, unless otherwise indicated. So, getting close to Christmas. Any final thoughts, Taxus?
Yeah, I hope everybody liked the show. If not, please remember our no refund policy.
And I was hoping to exchange you for a new co-host. Well, that'll do it for this episode of Starship, Saber, and Scoundrels. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll catch up with you next time, and may the Force be with you.
No exchanges.